Hi, everyone. Sorry we're a little bit late today, but we've got a great town hall planned with you with Mayor Ayanna Shivers from Mexico, Missouri. We had a couple technical difficulties, so this one's going to look a little bit different, but don't worry, we'll still have the same wonderful time with all of you. So while you're watching right now, if you can, please go ahead and share the video. Let folks know that you're watching, and if you can, in the comments, if you're on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, wherever you're watching from, you can actually submit questions to us while the show's going on, or if you have them already ready to go, let us know. Go ahead and put them right in the comments. We'll get to see that, and we'll get to respond to them live as we're going on. If you're watching on the website at aladgross.live, there's a phone number there, and you can text your questions directly to me. You can also text me about things after the show, so that's the added benefit of that. Anyway, if you're watching right now, go ahead and share the video. We'll be on in just a bit, and for now, stay tuned. Thanks for being patient. We'll be back in just a couple seconds. Started. All right, hi everybody. Thanks for waiting. We really appreciate it, and we are ready to get this town hall started. So let me bring in our guest. Mayor, are you there? Can you hear us?
I am here. I can hear you well.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming. We're doing this a little bit differently. We are on the Zoom platform right now, as some of you probably have used during this time of our coronavirus period. Yeah, we're going to be doing this here through Zoom, so it'll be a little bit different for everybody who's been watching before. You can still go ahead, ask your questions. So if you are watching right now, go ahead and put in the comments whatever questions you have. Let us know where you're watching from. I'm sure an animal or two. From Mark Gagne, thanks for watching, buddy. And we say hello to Wiley Dog, too. So thanks for coming and watching. Mayor, how are you doing today? Great. I'm doing great. I mean, we got a little technical stuff going on, but it's a good time. We're trying our best here. Could you, for everybody out there who's watching right now, could you introduce yourself? Let us know what you do, where you're from, and why we're talking today. That's great. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you wanting to do it and coming on. So I'm really excited that you are here. For those folks, so Lincoln University, that's over in Jefferson City. So right now, I guess a lot of folks, and because we're talking a little bit about education in the state right now. So we might have a little bit of an issue with the audio coming from you right now. We'll try again. We'll keep going. I see you, Marilyn. So thank you for pointing out. Hopefully it's working now. But we'll try. If not, we'll come back on. Don't worry. We'll all work through this thing together. But could you tell us a bit about higher education right now, because I know that there are so many issues going on with the state budget and everything else. Have there been talks about what's going to be happening at Lincoln University next year?
Totally looks different. Normally, it's something where people would come on campus, they do the tour, they'd walk through, meet people. Now, of course, everything is being done virtually. I've actually had the privilege of watching 3 students that I know of personally that are going to be going there doing that. We're doing advising, online. And of course, we've been on this platform, virtual online instruction since March, mid-March. So that has been different to say the least. Yeah. And just got word, it looks like Lincoln has cut 41 positions. I know my original position definitely is probably on the chopping block. So that's, it's one of the things that's going on with the budget cuts that came with higher ed. And so it's interesting to see how the universities are working around making sure that their students can get the best education possible, while faculty is going to be forced to really be working. Probably, people are going to be taking. I know I'm with the union there, and I know one of the things that they agreed to do, or one of the things was they would take a larger course load for the same amount of pay. I know Lincoln faculty staff is taking a 2.5% decrease in salaries for the upcoming year. So I think based on the information that I received, I think Lincoln was one of the hardest hit in the last round of cuts. And so we're seeing it. Yeah. But, it's always hopeful to see the tenacity of people, and people are still forging on. I've seen educators even in K-12, because I know K-12 is suffering now too. We forge on because that's what educators do. We weren't in it obviously for the money. It's more for the outcome. And I'm looking forward to the day, hopefully, where we can see proper compensation for those who give so much and pour into our youth and our future.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly a tough time, having taught for many years now with kids, primarily with St. Louis Public Schools, but it's tough to see all those cuts happening right now, and so much of that is because of what happened in the economy with the coronavirus and delays in taxing, and folks just not having the money. I mean, folks before
it's just not there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they were already on the edge before this, and this certainly pushed a whole lot of folks, and unfortunately, a lot of small businesses just can't recover from it either. I wonder. I mean, certainly it seems like things are going to be changing for some time. Virtual learning obviously is one component of that. I wonder, how much have you had to do with that already? I mean, obviously we're Zooming right now, and there's difficulties all the time. Like sometimes, the microphone's not working or whatever it is. But I wonder how has that transition been?
For the most part, I can honestly say from working at Lincoln, we were lucky that when everything COVID-19 was really hitting big, our students were already on spring break. So Lincoln took the platform, will extend spring break by a week. And they did extensive training for teachers and faculty on various online platforms for people who've never used YouTube or Zoom or Schematic. They really tried to make sure that we were equipped with information to help us make the transition easier. I think the biggest thing that we're seeing, and I think, like you said, we see it in higher ed, and I'm sure it was the same in K-12, not everyone has access to the internet. Right. That's one of the big issues in Missouri. When I ran a couple of years ago, that was one of the things we talked about. How can we make sure that everyone has access to, broadband is available throughout the state and not just in spots? What can we do to improve that? And then, of course, there's some people, I had some students that were really good students, and all of a sudden you wouldn't hear from them. They didn't have a laptop. Their smartphone. Maybe they didn't have an actual smartphone. Believe it or not everyone has smartphones. So those are the type of issues I think that we're plagued with now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you hear stories of teachers and students having to go to, the local Walmart to get the Wi-Fi to download their assignments or to upload them. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. We've had folks that, we've had on, with technical difficulty. Sometimes they were able to make it depending on where they are in the state. But a lot of folks who've just been like, I don't get reliable internet. I can't come on this thing. I can't do this. Folks who are, they can't even, not even like watch, we do a lot of stuff online now as a campaign to try to, reach out to folks or whatever it might be, also get information out. And for folks, I mean, just like getting part of a video down is
oh gosh, just like you said, you and I trying to get on the Skype platform. It was just like, what's going on?
Yeah.
I can say, from being in Mexico, one of the things that I saw here as we were, combating the coronavirus and the pandemic here and locally, is seeing so many of our business people, the chamber, our community coming together and working. There's been a big push, to encourage people to shop locally, whether if you're not comfortable going into the stores, shop online, have your food delivered. And we were seeing it actually, the top of the month when we had our council report, we actually saw a 6.8% increase in sales taxes from the previous year at the same time. Now, what's going to happen after the length of this extends, that might drop. But right now, we're seeing people really trying to make things happen. We saw several entities, even some of them going on now, that restaurants were providing meals, not only to students, but for seniors. And, the community seeing people come and donate, from their own pockets or items to be utilized. That gives you hope.
Right.
Definitely.
Right. Yeah. Well, I got so many questions related to all, but I want people to understand how you got where you are right now. So, so you're the mayor of Mexico, Missouri, over in Audrain County, lovely county. I love visiting. Been to Mexico several times, including for some fairs before the virus hit. But how did you become mayor of? Because I know your government's a little bit different. How did you become mayor of Mexico?
Well, it started. It's hard to believe it's been over 3 years when I first got elected to city council, and I just recently was reelected when we had the election in June. After being gone for almost 25 years, so I moved back. It'll be 6 years ago. August.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Getting my days and stuff mixed up. This COVID-19 is really affecting us more than we thought.
Yeah.
And I remember after being here about 6 months, I started attending council meetings, and I was shocked to see, I guess I should say, the look of our council at that time. Mm-hmm. There were no women, there were no people of color. And I moving back, you hear people complain about stuff. And I'm one of those people, when you hear people complaining or you see a problem, be part of the solution. And for me, that was, let's run for office. First year I lost by 18. The next year I ran and was elected, and still to this date have the most number of votes. As far as if you go by the year. This time I didn't have quite as many, but not as many people came out either. And then last year, for the first time, the way that we do it is it's not a public election for mayor. It is the council elects their mayor each year. Because we have a unique form where the council members get $1, the mayor gets $1. I don't get $2, I still just get $1. But and that's the way that they decided that we were running it, simply because we hire a city manager that takes care of the contracts and does the actual business. He just can't do anything without our approval. So. Mm-hmm.
So is it always a council member who serves as the mayor?
You have to be a council member. Right now we have a clause in there where before I got on the council, they had put it up where a person cannot serve as mayor more than 2 consecutive terms. Mm-hmm. So come April, I will lose my seat as mayor unless the council decides which we have the option to do to move it back the way it was previously, where there's no term limit on how many times they can elect you to stay the mayor.
Gotcha.
You know, one of the cool things for some people was the fact that I was the first Black female to hold this office. And it had been 40 years since another Black council person served on the council when I got elected. So,
wow. Yeah. Wow. So what, so you've got this first election and you said you lost by 18, and that's not 18%, that's 18 votes.
18 votes.
18 votes. And you're out there. I mean, first there's like the barrier, because we've got a lot of folks who are running for the first time that we're working with around the state, or even young folks who are on the campaign who are looking and thinking, hey, I want to run for something one day. But, I guess there's two kind of barriers there, because there's one, you deciding, with all this history and looking around at the council and everything else, and obviously, like you said, like that first barrier was, well, I see something wrong, I'm going to try to change it, and I want to be involved and get in there. So it's the first one to run that first time. But then after that first time and losing by 18 votes, like what was it that said you got to get off the mat? You're doing this again.
Well, I've never been a quitter, so I was one of those things. One, when I ran the first time, it was just me. I went and invested some money in some yard signs. I put a couple up. I really didn't have anyone working with me. So some people didn't even realize I was back. And what you found out, a lot of times there are certain populations that didn't see the need of voting in municipal elections. The beauty, I said, of me losing the 18, it sparked more people who historically didn't go out in these elections to go out the next time, because they were like, I could have went and voted. It was only 18. And I said, initially I think it was the fact that they didn't think I had a snowball chance in Hades in winning. And so why bother? It's going to be the same old, same old. But when they realized, oh my gosh, our vote could have made a major difference on the outcome, it motivated them to become a part of the solution.
Yeah, you get like a room full of 18 people and you're like, hey, did you all vote?
No, and the crazy thing is, I think I probably had 20 that came up and told me later, I'm so sorry. And I wanted to say to them at that point, don't tell me you're not one of the people who didn't go out. Please don't apologize. I really don't want to know.
Yeah. Just keep it to yourself. Wait a little bit.
Keep it to yourself. It still hurts a little bit.
Yeah. But. Oh, man. Well, that's okay. A lot of these things happen. I think you're exactly right. I mean, you're looking at the situation, and sometimes folks just need to be woken up, right? To say, oh,
that's
wow.
Right.
I make a difference, right? I could have done this. So.
And that's it. And I think since being on the council, my main goal was to see that everyone felt that they had a voice. Yeah. Or at least know that somebody's trying to listen. Since being the mayor, I've started instituting something I call Munch with the Mayor. Right now, we're doing it via Zoom. Okay. We've been doing it virtually the last couple of times. But it's a time where I'll pick a local restaurant, a random restaurant, because I said, hey, that brings business to them. Tell people when I'm going to be there. Sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's noon, sometimes it's at the evening. So a person can't say, well, I work out the time in the mornings, or I'm like, well, I try to hit each time. And now it's more about seeing who really is coming out. And then it's really a free for all. I'll bring some information about what the council has voted on, or things that are up and coming, things I think citizens should be concerned about. And then after that, they're free to ask questions. Sometimes I have other guests from the city come and, share their perspectives on things or answer questions about pressing issues. So
yeah. What are folks, I guess, having these meetings virtually, or even, listening to folks outside of that, but what are the biggest issues that you're seeing right now in your town?
For a while when COVID hit, I was getting more inboxes on my Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find. Just saying, hey, my job didn't close down, or hey, what's the city doing? We haven't heard this order yet, or what, how are they? People just needed reassurance of not necessarily agreeing with how we were handling it 100%, but understanding the rationale. And our message was, we are operating on facts, not fear. We're trying to implement best practices. Now with the opening, we're saying, hey, yes, we're reopening for business, but we're still highly recommending you follow, social distancing, hand washing, if you choose to wear a mask, those sort of things. And I said, this is how we slow the curve and hopefully still allow our communities to move forward.
Yeah. It's interesting because there was, you were talking about the sales tax, which is just so essential to local governments. And a lot of places, I know I was in Lebanon shortly before everything happened, and there was a big discussion about the Wayfair tax, which is, the tax because there's that company Wayfair, which I wasn't super familiar with, but it's online. I mean, similar to like an Amazon or something else.
Yeah, we call it the use tax.
The use tax, yes. And there's these online companies, these retailers that aren't paying it, right? So they're not paying or they're not collecting it and then giving it. Yeah. Is that something that you would like to see happen?
Actually, funny you just ask us that.
Wow.
We had the use tax on our June 2nd election.
Okay.
And we can say that not only in Mexico, but in our county, Audrain, it passed almost, 65% of the voters. I think it's because we were doing an excellent job of talking about what we're wanting to use it for. Primarily, we were using it for capital improvements. For Mexico, the big, I think one of the big draws, and I think it probably helped Audrain County because Mexico is one of the biggest,
right,
is the county seat. So it probably helped it, get over a little bit easier when we had so many people locally that were voting for it. But explaining that, look, we're losing money. You're complaining about our roads. You're complaining about, for us, it was a swimming pool. We've been wanting a swimming pool. And we said, hey, we're about to do construction for a swimming pool, but whether or not we get the $3 million pool or a $1 million splash pad is pretty much. And, you can't please everyone. I know that even afterward and after we had our meetings and even I was looking at some comments. Some people were disappointed when last night the final draft for the pool was shown and it took off 2 of the swimming lanes and it didn't have a drop slide that was going to cost us another additional $138,000. But one of the things that we added was a diving board that teenagers, when we had a lunch with the mayor that was out of the high school, told Parks and Recs, if we had to choose between the slide or the diving board, we want the diving board. And so it's, really trying to get people to understand you can't always get everything. It's not, as somebody tried to put it, we're trying to do a bait and switch. It comes to dollars and cents.
Right. Yeah, especially now. I mean, goodness gracious, so many plans have had to change as a result of all of this.
Exactly.
It's amazing you're just talking about 2 swimming lanes versus the whole darn thing. So, I know, because I got an email about this at the end of the legislative session, and there was a guy who's a small business owner, I think in St. Charles, and he was very upset, very, very upset. And he was talking about how the legislature isn't passing this and how he's getting, people are just coming into his store to look around, and then they're like, oh, we can get this for cheaper online than walking out. And, it's tough. It's tough when that playing field, not only from the perspective of money that's coming into the local government and then the services that you can provide, but also the playing field between these online big retailers that already have all this power versus local stores. It's tough.
And I think I was more disappointed thinking when the state passed its use tax, it did not include the municipalities and counties in that and said, hey, we got ours. So the rest of y'all, if you can get it, great. If you can't. And, we were blessed. We were a little nervous about that. Anytime you're talking about a tax, people get a little, more money you're taking out. Is this a new tax? But like I told people, you pay it when you, shop locally. When you go out of town and now, because a lot of people are doing so much more online. Yeah. I said, you're really hurting your own communities. You're talking about the schools. You're talking about this that you want to see improved. But if you don't have tax dollars, I know there are some people who are totally against taxes, but the reality is without them, you're not going to be able to run your communities. So.
Yeah.
It's a necessary evil.
Yeah. I mean, look, you gotta get the swimming pool. And I think what's what's so good about this, and I really like this conversation, it just makes me smile so much, is the nuance and the detail, like all these things, like, oh, we had this conversation, here's the pricing of this slide versus, like, there is such a huge impact that local government has in all of our lives. And far too often we're so focused on, these offices that get a lot more attention, but really don't do as much. I wonder for you, since, you were talking about getting folks out, they didn't come out the first time, but they had to learn. What has been, what have you learned being, elected official on the local level, in terms of like engaging more people in the process? Like what has that been like for folks who might not have been looking before?
It's funny, and I really do need to write this paper. I mean, this reflection for a journal that it has asked me to for about a year, and I just haven't got around to it. So it's going to be on my to-do list.
Come on now.
A lot of people don't realize that when I worked on my PhD, one of the things that I really worked on was the andragogy of teaching adults and getting adults engaged. So it really helps because you realize, hey, I have to make this personal to them and their experience. And I saw it, I'm sure you see it on the campaign trail, when you can connect with people at their level and at what they're wanting to talk about. In other words, if we're not always bringing our own agendas in here, but we allow them to see, no, we've been hearing what you're saying, it opens up the dialogue. It opens up people. They may not, like you said, they may not always agree with what your decision is, but they can sometimes respect it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just they'll respect because you're respecting them now, right? Like you're telling them.
It's a really simple concept.
They're pretty, we kind of learned that pretty early. We're supposed to, at least. I hope we're still doing that.
Yeah, I try to be involved. I remember one of the platforms I ran on, first and second time that I ran, and I mentioned it this third time when I ran, is city council people. Once we're elected officials, we can't be living in some type of cocoon somewhere. Off in some cave. We have to be out and about. The craziest things or the little things that mean so much to me happened, was one of the things that happened last Sunday. I was at Highway 54 Diner, finished my meal, was leaving, and I decided I was going to go over and watch a movie, E.T., believe it or not. There's no movie.
Great movie.
But I decided I was going to support local. And the history behind me watching E.T., I know the people are like, why is she telling us this? Is that was the first movie I ever watched in that cinema. And as I was leaving, an 86-year-old woman, actually, I was out the door, and she followed me out just to introduce herself and said she was so happy to meet me.
Oh.
It's the little things of, they see you, they know who you are, and they feel that, hey, I can go up and talk to her. She's like, she's accessible. She's easy to talk to. And that means more to me than anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like, I had a couple people call me actually just before this. There was a guy who called me and he, there's a number on the website. And, they call the number on their website and they're expecting a staffer. And it's mine. Yeah, it's mine. And then he calls and I pick up. He's like, wait, this is Alon Gross? And I'm like, yes. It's like, no way. Like, I can't believe you're picking up the phone. I'm like, why not? Like, you should be able to access the folks that you are voting for, right? Isn't that? But we're just cued into thinking, oh, it shouldn't be accessible. And then there's this mystery around it. And it makes it so much harder for then people to get involved or to voice their opinions or to be represented really in the system. So, it's great. And you got to be out there. You got to show up. That's so important.
You do.
Yeah.
It's the little things. They see me at sometimes. I'll go to random school events, at the elementary schools or something. But I love those little things. Yeah. Because I learn so much, I think, being there. Mm-hmm. I learn so much when the students know who I am or understand that I might not talk about being mayor so much as being part of the city council or being involved in. They know that people care and they're watching. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it means... it means so much to folks who are there too, because you showed up, right? And now the activity especially for a kid, especially for a young kid, when they see that like adults are showing up for them, I mean, it puts so much more value on what they're doing, and then
Exactly.
It's hard because I've taught a lot of kids, and I've taught them for a long time, especially in more disadvantaged school districts that still haven't gotten the funding and the support they need. But a lot of kids, they don't get to learn that self-value because all society, everything around them, their schools, the building, the resources, the number of teachers that might be in a classroom, all of it tells them that you don't matter as much as somebody else. And
Exactly.
to have people showing up like you are, I mean, I think it means a world of difference. So thank you for doing that.
We're trying in Mexico. I'll have to say it's a group effort.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I've always had a great experience there. So you'd have my vote if I lived there. So
thank you.
not that I can even vote for the mayor because it's now.
Well, you can vote for me to be on council.
Yes, I can get you on the council. We'll get you on the council first. So how do you like that? Do you think that system? I mean, it's different, right? It's interesting. It's a nonpartisan type thing. So do you like it? Do you think it's working well?
I mean, I haven't known anything else for the city. I mean, I think because of the type of issues we actually show up in a town, we're not super small. We're a little under 12,000, but we don't have these major issues. I think where it necessitates. What am I trying to say?
That's the word. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, it's one of those days.
That's a tough one. Yeah.
That we have to, vote for a mayor to lead and be this person. I almost like the fact that we have a 5-person council. All of us have voting, rights. And I think it makes it where people are just, we can work together as a team. Yeah. I think it means something when everyone had to be elected by the people to get there. Mm-hmm. And then amongst ourselves, we can say, you know what, this is who we want to represent us as a whole. Yeah. So, I'm cool either way, but, I know some people have issues with it, but I think it's been working right now for our community. Mm. I think maybe if we had the old ward system or something like that, where we didn't do citywide elections, if we did partisan elections, and we don't, I think that's the reason why it really works works here, because it's not about what side of the fence you're on politically. It's about what are you trying to do to make the community better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I like the nonpartisan nature of life. I wish we had more of it, to be honest with you, in government. I think
me too.
Yeah, I think we'd see some better results. So you mentioned this a bit, but you left and then you came back, and I think we're seeing in a lot of places in Missouri, especially in areas that have been ignored for a long time, a lot of folks leave and they don't come back. I guess with your journey. And now you're not only are you back, but you're back. Like, you're elected, you're here.
I'm here.
And look, I can feel the energy about it. So what do you tell young people who, not just in Mexico, but in towns all throughout our state, really all over the country, about the experience you've had coming back? Because there was a long break in the middle there, but the experience that you've had.
A long break, 25 years.
Yeah, but the value, has that. I mean, obviously you're still here, and you seem to be having a great time. So, what was the value of that for you, and how can you communicate that to others?
I'll tell anybody. I always say I said God has a sense of humor, and that was one of the ways He showed His humor. I was happy being away from Missouri. I did notice as I was getting older, all my family was here. So I would spend longer summers, like 6 weeks in the summer. I would come and they'd have to put up with me. And my parents were like, you're at the house for 6 weeks. Yep. I'm eating up all your food. I'm going to demand what type of food, what I want to cook, certain meals before I leave, all this. But while I was, coming back, I also noticed, hey, I'm in South Carolina. I'm working with this group of students. I'm working with I'm really into the arts. And so I was on a cultural council and different things that I was doing to improve the livelihood where I was. But then I was coming back and seeing some of the same issues where I grew up. Then I said, well, I was ready to leave South Carolina. And I said, I want to move closer, maybe within 8 hours of my parents. So if anything happens, less than a day's journey. I can get in my car, boom.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did the 16 hours in a day, but it'd be nice to be able to get there a lot earlier, daylight.
Yeah.
And as I was preparing and, putting out, God, literally, I have to use that, be honest, God sort of directed me, no, you're going back home. And I realized it was more for the purpose especially being a Black female.
Yeah.
And I realized there weren't a lot of people like me who had their PhD, had grew up here and came back or was around. Most of us would leave. And like you said, we might come back to visit family occasionally. Mm-hmm. And it was our rearview mirror. And I think it was realizing if somebody's not here, if people don't have images of themselves to look up and say, hey, I can do this too, sometimes they lose the motivation. And I think that, that's part of being that counselor. That counselor in me comes back is, if I don't come back, if everyone leaves, mm-hmm. who's here for our children?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think oftentimes it's so nice. Like, I feel like we need like people who are, for a system to work, it has to work for folks who are going about their business regularly, right? And it's successful. It's like my football coach would say, and I thought about becoming what I was for a little bit, but you got to put people in positions to succeed, right? And so
right.
You ain't gonna put me on the offensive line. I really wanted to be, but I ain't gonna be there.
Could,
I mean, I could. You ain't gonna succeed. I'm telling you right now, it ain't gonna go too well. But that's kind of how it works. But it's like we're at the point right now where, because so many of the systems aren't working, we need like extraordinary people to take that step and then lead in a lot of ways to make that system work better. And to have, those examples for other folks. I wonder, looking around, and there's a lot of issues happening throughout the country and in Missouri. Okay. But I wonder, you look at what all of your experience. You're in higher ed. You're back in your hometown. You're on the city council. What would make it easier for you to do all of these things that you would like to see in our state or in our state government? Is there something or some things in particular? Except
as outside of having 48-hour days.
Outside of slowing down the rotation of the earth, yes. What would?
Well, I think we hit on it earlier when we said if we had a more nonpartisan approach to government. Right now, and I think the thing that disheartens me the most is seeing, and I even preached about it the other day. I said we have sides. Everybody's yelling at each other, but nobody's listening. Mm-hmm. And so it's everyone wants to be heard, but nobody's doing it where, no one's willing to sit down and let's talk about it. Let's negotiate. Let's see how we can collaborate and work together. I think that's the key thing. I think too often we have lost focus when we look at government and politics in the country. We start looking at individuals. We look at parties specifically, and we paint them as black or white or purple or pink, whatever the case may be. Right. And we don't look at issues. We don't think of how is it going to impact not just the wealthy, but the ones who are most vulnerable. And we don't look to find some type of middle ground. And I think that's the biggest thing that we have to work on. And I say, that it goes back to those of us who are politically minded or who can think like that. We have to keep forging to try to get our place at the table.
Yeah. And oftentimes that's hard, especially, just given the history, right, and representation and everything else. And there's a lot of barriers to that really shouldn't be there, but unfortunately they still are. We got a wonderful comment coming in. I'm going to put it up on the screen for everybody. I'll read it out so that you can hear it too. But it's from Mercedes Van Dyke. Ayanna makes me proud to be from Mexico, and I'm super excited to vote for a lot this fall. Oh, well, thank you for that too. But I mean, it's I think it's
thanks.
Right? Isn't that nice? I mean, it's just it's seeing. just like you said. I mean, it's showing up and it's coming out and doing the right thing, and people see that, and I think it really reflects in a lot of ways. And whether you're on one side of the spectrum or the other in this political world or whatever, I think that's really important. It's that work that means so much. So, yeah, no, that's great. That's good. So you got a fan coming out. Mercedes, thanks for commenting.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're coming close to the end here. Unfortunately, we're a little bit shortened due to technical difficulties, but that's okay. Maybe another time we'll bring it back on and we'll talk some more issues as they come up. This was a lot of fun. We'll have to co-host a show at some point. I think that would be good. Yeah, we'll do it. This is good. I like this. We've got a crowd. We've got some people out there who are watching. Young folks who are in Missouri, couple people from outside too. You have any parting thoughts, any words of wisdom that you'd like to give the people and let them know, especially during this time of some confusion and chaos and whatever's going. But do you have anything that you'd like to impart on the rest of us?
I think it's realizing, like I always say, I said, understanding begins when you realize just because something isn't your reality does not mean it's not somebody else's. Mm. It's being able to have conversations that may be difficult and listen, when you're having the conversation, listen with an open heart and mind. And it's really being able to take a part, get out, do your part. If you're 18 and older, register. If you're not registered to vote, get to know what candidates are running, get to know the issues in your communities, make a difference. Take pride in the communities in which you serve. And I think if more people really just did their part and realized, I don't have to give billions of dollars, I don't have to do anything major, I just have to learn to be a good citizen and respect other citizens in my community, and the world will be a better place.
Yeah, this is why I feel so strongly we need more educators in government in general, because you learn how to be respectful. You learn how to be patient. Otherwise, you ain't going to be there for very long if you're not patient. No.
I did middle school. I don't know about you. But
my first class that I taught was kindergarten. And
blessings.
Oh, man. Yeah, I had some kids there. Oh, they were great. They were wonderful. Yeah, that was a good time. And then, I've done all the way up through high school. I've actually taught some college kids, too, every once in a while. But yeah, that was a good first class to teach. So, yeah, you definitely learn a lot teaching kindergartners. You sure do. So
they have way too much energy.
They got a lot of energy. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
You would have said you probably had this as much as they did. So they were probably more tired trying to keep up with the teacher.
Every once in a while. Yeah, every once in a while. Yeah, no, it's funny at the summer programs that I've been doing. We have all different grade levels together. So it's kindergarten up through middle school, and then we have high school kids and college kids who are hired to be basically camp counselors, right? And so it's really funny because the program we do is very much like they're running the world. They form a government. It's very politically oriented. We have people come in, special guests who are elected office.
Something like boys and girls state.
We actually had a young lady from Girls State, Camille. If you're watching right now, Camille came down and she was one of our counselors and was wonderful. But she was so into it. She was so into it because it was basically like Girls State, but like 3 weeks in a row. Totally immersed. Right. Yeah, so she, I had to calm her down one year because she was basically taking over the country from her kids. But that's okay, we're fine. But it's so interesting because, you would come in and you'd see me after a while I would interact because I had them all in the same room and I would interact with the kids the same way. So you'd see me talking to a kindergartner about like international treaties and embargoes, and they're just like, we should stop trading with them. I'm like, okay, if that's what you want, whatever you want. So people would just be like, what is happening in this room right now? But lots of learning.
It doesn't matter. It's happening.
It's happening. It is absolutely happening. They're learning a lot, and when you trust kids to lead, oftentimes they do pretty good. Sometimes they blow up the world, but it's at least it's a fake world. Yeah.
Everyone's entitled to a couple of mistakes.
Yeah, you get it out now is my thought. You get it out. We had one kid, and I should stop talking, but we had one kid. She came back three or four years in a row maybe. And the first year she was there was like a whole, they developed a nuclear weapon, and then they dropped it. It was the second and third graders, and they dropped it on the high school kids. Or no, they dropped it on, there was an independent country, it spilled over to the high school. It was a whole thing. I remember 3 years later, she was sitting there and somebody had developed a weapon, and she looked and she went over to them and she stared at them and she said, "You don't want that thing. You'd never want that thing." Those were the dark times. I was like, oh my God, what have I done? That is great. It was great.
Look, they've emerged. They're learning.
Yeah, so they're learning over time. Yeah. Well, this was a great time. I really appreciate you coming on, Mayor.
Thank you for having me.
Mayor Shivers of Mexico, Missouri. This was fantastic. So thank you all, everybody, for coming. I'm going to switch the screen to say goodbye to everybody real quick. Come back to this one. Well, we really appreciate you coming. Thank you all for coming on. You can see all of these shows, and we put them up. Sometimes it takes a couple days to get them up there, but you can watch them or listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And we've got a few episodes that are a little bit in the pipeline coming up, but you can go straight to the website. Let's get that thing on for you. It is at aladgross.org. So go ahead and visit there. Check it out. If you got any questions, I just told you my cell phone number's on the website, so enjoy that one. Thanks for coming, everybody, and we will see you next time.